Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fly the Coop. Hello, Steve. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
How
How about yourself?
I'm so glad you're here.
Are you?
Yeah. I am excited to talk about water today. We talked about soil and land the last time you were on the show, and it was fascinating. Hugelculture, to be exact. It's a fascinating thing. So if you didn't see it, click on the Fly the Coop podcast. You're going to see all the shows, and you'll see Steve's last episode. Now, today, I suggested we talk about water.
Well, because we talked about gardens, and then as it turns out, you actually have to water the garden.
Yeah.
So it does. I guess there's that segue.
And more importantly, what's in the water?
Yeah. Well, so I guess this topic kind of actually came up in our household here earlier today. The whole concept, I actually have it here on my phone because we asked how many lakes are there actually in Minnesota? And there are 11,000. It's a land of 10,000 lakes, but there actually are 11,000. This is according to the Google, 11,842 lakes. It says, although promoted as the land of 10,000 lakes, Minnesota has 11,842 of 10 acres or more. The 1968 state survey found 15,291 lake basins, of which, and this is kind of why water conservation is important, of which 3,257 of those lake basins were dry. If all basins over 2.5 acres were counted, Minnesota would have 21,871 lakes. So yeah, it says, just goes on to say the prevalence of all these lakes has generated many repeat names for the state. Anyway, so yeah, lots of lakes and quite a few of them that are dry, and that kind of brought us to the whole concept of water and the whole concept of what you and I were talking about earlier. Just kind of the being as conscientious about it as possible, regenerative in all that we're doing here. I mean, we ended up here because, Cari Ann and I we had two separate homes, and Cari Ann said, Steve, we should remodel your kitchen. Next thing you know, we're here. So now we're out here on, 15.5 acres with a 3-acre pond. So we're forced to think about water and keeping everything as anti-chemical as possible. It's hard to get away from that in the city.
Yep.
Like I always had great concerns, even just about, kids drinking water at school, all of that stuff, all the chemicals and things that are in the water. Out here, we're on a well. And so.
And we test the well.
Yeah. And in fact, we can maybe throw a link up to that test kit, just an inexpensive test kit off Amazon. It doesn't give you all of the detail that you may want, but it tests for all kinds of different things. At least gives you an indication of whether or not these things are prevalent in the water, because there are farms and things around us. So I was looking like for, runoff of fertilizer, nitrates, that sort of thing.
Well, it's the whole chemical thing, just generally speaking out there, the spraying that happens, not only in a residential environment.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's chronic and really high level. I don't think many people talk about it and how that impacts each other, everybody, and not really thinking about what one is doing in terms of getting an outcome to make something beautiful, because we all know I love beautiful things. Whether it is about taking care of your gardens or your yard or water, we have a 3-acre pond on our property and a spring-fed creek that runs through our property, Browns Creek. What we do impacts that water, which eventually enters other ecosystems. It's all interconnected.
Yeah, we're all connected one way or another.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to nitpick, but I mean, that was one of the things that always frustrated me, is everyone spraying chemicals all over in the city. I remember always having to shut our windows. It seemed like every other day there's, you're breathing these, I mean, the wind is blowing it. You're breathing these chemicals. Well, the same thing happens out here to a degree. Farmers are spraying something nearby, and drift can be in some scenarios can be miles. So that is something to keep in mind. And again, anything you're spraying on, whether it be your lawn or, whatever, at the end of the day, your water is coming from below your feet. There's an aquifer down there somewhere, and your water is coming from that. So everyone who's putting chemicals on, just understand that you're contributing to what's going in all of our shared bodies, because we all share the water system. So,
and you said something once, and I really didn't ever think about this, but it's so true. We're not making new water.
yeah, I mean, I've heard it said that the water that existed here is still here. It changes forms certainly and moves around, but we haven't lost any, we haven't gained any. It's all still here.
It's just in different forms, maybe, but it's
Yeah.
all here still.
Yeah.
But then how dirty does it get over the generations and centuries because of the world?
Yeah. And I've a little off topic maybe, but I've seen documentaries and stuff that are really cool where they say there's some scenarios where, water, once it goes underground, stays underground, like deep underground, potentially for, up to years as it's moving around, before it finally comes out at some point. So there's certainly some very clean water sources out there, but
like our water could be in Africa right now. You don't really know.
Something I drank earlier may have run through a dinosaur. Yeah. Hopefully the dinosaur was a good filter. No, but seriously, for us here, we're concerned about obviously the water quality, but also the volume of it or lack thereof. I mean, this pond that we have fluctuates pretty wildly.
Yeah.
And it is spring fed. I mean, I know that I've seen, seeping springs and stuff. So I know there's springs that are going into it and it doesn't go completely dry, but it's a pretty large area to have, drop by a couple of feet when we hit some of these dry spells, despite our heavy snow winter that we just had.
Yeah. Well, and that's a perfect segue. I think we'll use that as an example because there are so many ponds, like waterways in the state, like so many owners of real estate out there have a water source of some sort like this. And Steve has done a lot of research on this. And I think it's interesting to maybe share the story about the evolution of what we believe has happened with this pond, because when we purchased the property, the owner thought maybe 18 feet was the deepest area.
He created the pond. And he said when he did, the south end of the pond was about 18 feet deep. Now, I mean, this happens to lakes and whatnot, over the course of time. Like if you go up, further up north, where, you may be sitting like in northern Minnesota next to a cliff edge and, rock edge, and right at the edge of the rock, it could be, 50 or 100 or more feet deep, versus you get down here into more kind of southern Minnesota area, and it starts to fill in and becomes a bowl shape where you don't have as much, structure, drop-offs and that sort of thing. And over time, that's going to happen to all the lakes that are down here that are getting all of the debris from trees or weeds or, all of the things that flow in and then settle. And in our scenario here, we have what is a natural, it's not an invasive plant, but it's called duckweed. But it's prolific. It doubles, I think, every 48 hours or something. Yeah. So it floats. It doesn't have a root structure that touches the ground. So it moves, it flows with the wind.
But voluminous, like there's a lot of it.
This year, it's been particularly thick.
Look out.
Yeah. It's like the whole pond is green with it. It's not algae. It's not a slime or whatnot. It's literally, they look like tiny little lily pads. And believe it or not, although I don't know that I'd want to harvest and eat it out of a water source that I'm not 100% on, but it has a higher protein content than soybeans.
Isn't that crazy?
So it is something that, I'm working on. It's one of the restorative things here, regenerative, using the things that we have from the land without actually making the pond a little bit healthier by allowing the sunlight to penetrate and not have all the duckweed, keep the sunlight out from getting to the other plants is what I'm trying to say. But so harvesting the duckweed, I've got a few ideas to build some cool little contraptions that I'll eventually get to. But yeah, just to harvest it and bring it out, let it dry, and then add it to the feed for our animals. Speaking of which, I just ordered another 50 chickens and 10 turkeys just like 10 minutes ago. Yeah, we have, and that's, that's all part of it. So all of our animals, everything from from us, we're animals, to our dogs. We have a couple of Belgian Malinois, so be sure and call first before you come over. Yeah, and they're protecting the chickens. But so we've got 50 that are already here, and they're getting big. They're about like that
we
now.
have to do pictures.
Yeah. 50 American breasts, which is an interesting breed, heritage breed of bird, and we'll raise our own hereafter, which you can with the heritage breeds, but you can't with some of the others.
Gourmet restaurants want these chickens.
Yeah, they're said to be the best tasting chicken in the world. They come from France. But copyright laws, you can't call them French breasts. So they raise them here. They're called American breasts, same bird. They're red, white, and blue. So they've got the red comb, they've got
patriotic
the white feathers, and they actually have blue legs, which is kind of goofy. Yeah. But yeah, so slower growing heritage breed. They're good at foraging, which we love. They're eating grass. They're on fresh grass every day. So yeah, eating grass and bugs and all that good stuff.
So cool.
So yeah. But those are our broilers. So we will harvest those for food for us. And then we just picked up 50, just bought, they're being shipped. They ship these things through the mail. Like you actually go to the postal annex and pick up a box of chickens, little peeping chickens. Yeah. It's crazy how that works, but yeah, so they ship them through the mail. And yeah, so we got 50. It's a mix. I believe that it is a heritage breed mix of birds, not unlike some of the lane hens that we have, like same breeds.
Yeah, which is so wild.
So we've got 50 of those coming, and those will primarily we share with our dogs. Our dogs eat a raw
diet.
All raw. So beef, turkey, chicken, venison, because we do hunt here as well. But yeah, so anyway, all that's coming, but back to the water aspect and just the chemical free aspect. We will use, because we're not putting chemicals and things in the pond, we can harvest the duckweed and actually use it for some of the feed for like the chickens and whatnot. That will offset some of our expenses because all of the animals are fed, the chickens are fed a non-corn, non-soy, non-GMO, organic grain mixture that I ferment in water. And that water comes from our well. Our well we did test, and that came back really, really clean, really good. But I think it's like 180 feet down. So it's, but again, runoff and whatnot from the local farms is a concern.
Yeah, it is. So some of the takeaways on this are like, how do you, if you live in the city or if you have a piece of real estate with some land, what are some of the solutions around not spraying a chemical? How do you take care of your grass, fertilize it? In this case, believe it or not, and you can talk about this, the chickens.
Yeah, we leverage the chickens. And we get beautiful grass out of it.
Yeah, they do. And then you move them. They do. And then you just move them along. That's and then funny. In like 3 to 5 days, you have this lush green grass. It's kind of crazy. And there's no runoff from it, right? I mean, it's going down into the ground and it's natural.
Well, and they're not there. You don't leave them in one place for a really long period of time because there's a lot of nitrogen that goes into the soil when you do that. But so that's part of, a sustainable way, a really good way of raising chickens to keep them, we have to predator proof things and whatnot because we do have a lot of predators. But so they're in what's called a chicken tractor, which we can do pictures of at some point. And they're moved every day. They're on fresh grass.
They mow.
Yeah. They mow. Yeah. They eat the grass, they eat the bugs.
And they poop on it.
Yeah. And then it ends up being, they eat all the weeds. They eat everything. I mean, they'll eat and scratch and all that good stuff. And yeah, they leave behind healthier soil. We talked about that in the last episode where we're building soil. That's part of it.
It's a cohesive thing to do. I mean, a farmer could do that and fertilize their field.
You could do it even in the city you have fewer chickens, but I'm not saying you can. I'm saying you have to check with your local community and what you can do, what they allow. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, the chicken tractor, the moving chickens around the yard sort of scenario. Yeah. Your city may or may not allow that. I don't know. Out here, we can get away with that.
So in the city, if you follow what we were doing when we lived in the city, Steve built a coop, which is a whole other story that we've shared before. We had 4 chickens and they free ranged during the day. We let them out. We had to be careful about that because there's predators in the city as well. And we actually lost to an eagle
Hawks.
or a hawk. Yeah. But the point is that does the same thing. It's just a smaller, like it was a little 50-foot by 125 lot. And in the backyard, they would free range and fly into our neighbors, the Strongs yard frequently. We'd have to retrieve them. But the point is you can kind of apply the same thing. It's just a choice. It's a choice of convenience. I was guilty of that at one time, of making a perfect, pristine yard, how you go about that, and what are the after effects of choosing to use a chemical versus not, really, and how that impacts all water everywhere. It's a big thing.
It's, and we go beyond, we try and be as chemical free in general here in the house and everything. And, we're on a septic system.
Yep.
So one of the interesting things that we use, we're actually coming out with a product line for laundry. But that's just like, it's called super simple soap. So it's just super clean, simple, organic ingredients. But one of the things that we use,
safe for the water.
Yeah.
Most importantly.
Yeah.
This is a whole other subject by the
Well,
way.
so like the soap is made out of, organic, like literally organic edible ingredients, 3 ingredients soap, like our grandma's used to use back in the day. But then another product that we use, we call it our brightening booster for the laundry. It's just a non-bleach bleach product. But it's not.
Can use in the pond, by the way, too.
Yeah. So the beauty of it is it breaks down into, the after effect of it is hydrogen and oxygen. So it's it just over oxygenates water. So you add it to water, it becomes active. It's a white powder form. You add it to water, it becomes active, and it just over oxygenates the water. Which helps to certainly clean your clothes, but you can clean a lot of other things. You can use that, mix it with water. You can spray it on your deck to get rid of algae, and
you can pour on the pea spot in your grass.
Yeah. There's all kinds of things you can do with it. But one of the things that, we use it for, obviously, quite often is in our laundry. Almost every load of laundry, we're using this, but that all flows into our septic system. And what's interesting is, like, I just went out and checked the septic tank because, we're like, well, at some point we're going to have to get it pumped.
Yep. Second year in with a household of 5 and company.
So I went out there, and another beautiful thing about this, it stays active for a couple of hours once it enters the water. And it eats proteins. It just eats away proteins. So I went out to the septic tank just to test it. I took a stick to see, I want to see, how deep can I go down? Where's the level of it? So I put a stick all the way down, and thunk, I hit the bottom. So there's nothing in our septic tank. It's all eaten away and off
crazy.
It and flows out into the drain field. So
yeah, it's crazy.
That has to be, now I'm not a chemist and whatnot, but that has to be attributable to the fact that we're using this product, our brightening booster, that is eating away at that. And that's an example of where I would say anyone and everyone that cares about, your local environment and what's going into your, into the water that's below your feet. If you're on a well like we are and you're drawing the water from there, that's a great segue into, which we're not really here to talk about, but into finding and using cleaning products in your home that are affecting your water.
Correct.
And in our case, affecting our septic, which again, that's all ultimately flowing out into your water. So without adding other nasty chemicals or paying money to have your septic pumped, not that you shouldn't, if you need to do that, but yeah, I mean,
it's literally making it, there's no sludge whatsoever in the septic system.
You look at the money savings, like just to not have to have someone, how much, I don't know what it costs to have someone to come out and pump.
Yeah.
It's not just that it's not cheap, but it's inconvenient. We got to cut down a bunch of trees that have grown over to be able to get the pump truck back there and all this stuff. So
yeah,
it's a lot of effort. And if you were paying someone, now I would be the one who would normally go out and do all the cutting and all that stuff. But if you're paying someone to come and do that, like
it's expensive.
Yeah, it adds up quick. So then you compare that to suddenly all of our laundry products are free, to us as consumers,
right?
Because it's offsetting that cost. So, and it's better for the environment. So there's a lot of wins.
We're going to put it up on our store. We have one product in particular, and it is such a simple, truly super simple product. And there's so many ways to use it. Like it takes out stains, ladies and gentlemen, like every kind of stain imaginable. We can put it in
on your elderberry, your
Yes.
elderberry dress.
Brand new dress. I just bought it. Beautiful dress. And what did I do? I picked up, no kidding, Carter. I picked up this elderberry shot and I sneezed. And I sneezed right into my brand new bag with the pretty dress. And there's elderberry. And if anybody knows what elderberry is, it is a bright red, like it stains your fingers. I'm like, oh my God. I texted Steve, like, you're going to have to fix my dress. I just got this dress and I love this dress.
So I fixed it.
And she, yeah, totally. Like it's completely out. But this stuff, you can put it into the pond and it eats the,
yeah.
what
So
do you call that stuff in the pond?
Well, like algae. So it's a great combatant against algae. So if you did have algae buildup and, something even like it's safe for fish. So like a koi pond or that sort of thing, which, I know is not super popular, but a lot of people do have them. And you're always battling, the algae and all these different little water features and things. Sprinkle a little bit of this in there. Even if you do have fish, it literally just over oxygenates the water. So it shocks it. In fact, it's the primary ingredient in pool shock that people use in their swimming pools. Again, the whole point is it gets in it. As I understand it, it explodes the cell structure of the algae and thus kills it. And it shocks your pool. It over oxygenates it. And for the fish, of course, that's fantastic because it's just more oxygen in the water for them.
Yeah, I think people think that this is a chemical. It's just an organic.
Well, it breaks down. That's the beauty. It breaks down to oxygen and hydrogen, which of course is everywhere. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's highly useful. And obviously, and regardless of where you live, as a product for whether it be cleaning or solutions, going back to pee spots in your yard. If you have a dog, that's a real thing. So there's a process and it's working.
Yeah, it breaks down the proteins in the urine. So it just breaks down the urine. So because soil, once the dog pees on it and potentially if it's concentrated enough, kills the grass, but it also is in that soil. So you're really just, for us, we've been kind of experimenting, but it works. You put the stuff down just to break down that all of that's in the soil. And then from there, we can plant new grass over the top of it.
So you put it, we'll have a recipe for you. You get a gallon bucket, you put the percarbonate in there, and then
it's called sodium percarbonate is the technical name of the product.
Yeah. And then hot water, and you let it dissolve, and then you pour it on the spot.
Not too hot, but
not
once
too hot.
It's cooled off.
Once it's cooled off, it has to cool off. You have to mix it hot, but then you let it cool off entirely, pour it on the spots, let it sit there for a while, a couple hours, and then we spray it down, and then we have a little system. It's a whole other recipe to get the grass back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Fascinating, like a little scientist over here.
I don't know about that.
But I think what is fascinating is the inner workings of our water, especially in this state with so much. It is a precious commodity. It really is.
Yeah. And we all have to, if we all work together to protect it. I mean, like we've got Browns Creek Conservation District Group, whatever they're called here next to us.
Door.
Yeah. That own the property right next door to us. And they're working on restoring the creek. And we're actually going to talk to them. We haven't yet, but we're going to talk to them and partner with them because like our pond flows directly into that as well. So, but
and our pond is being fed by other waterways, and we know darn well that next to farmland, it's being sprayed. And so we are affected, whether we want to be affected or not.
But we're also working to mitigate some of that stuff. And in fact, talking with a friend of mine in the DNR and looking at the possibility of trying to add an additional waterway before our pond here. And really, it's just sort of like a drop zone for anything that's coming in, just one extra opportunity to help clean that water before it then gets into the creek. The creek ultimately flows into the St. Croix River and on and on. And I realize like in the grand scheme of things, it's literally like not even a drop in the bucket in terms of our helping the environment. But, if we can help guide other people to, do similar things, whether it's just, maybe change some of the plantings that you have down. That's if you're on a waterway, change some of the planting so your lawn chemicals, if you're using them, aren't really running directly in, but it has an area to filter out before it goes into the waterway. Just, simple little things like that. And it can be beautiful. You can plant some lovely things and whatnot.
Absolutely. I think it's a requirement on some lakes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It has to be because they have to protect the water.
Yeah.
It's impacting our lakes terribly. And the weed growth that you're seeing, the chronic problems with that, that's all stemming from fertilization
Yeah. You get a
of
lot of
yards.
nitrogen
Yeah.
in the water and
Yeah, it's a really fascinating thing. So we just thought it'd be a great opportunity to just touch on it, high level awareness, I say, and just some of the little tiny tips and tricks, which we'll share some notes below. We'll make sure to share those with Allie. And then you can reach out to us directly. We've got an Instagram page, we've got a Facebook page, we've got a website, and it is busy. So we're working on trying to be more attentive to the updates there. And we are going
there's a lot of stuff to do here on
a lot
the property.
We are
So
just
it's hard
busy
to find
people.
the time.
Yeah. But there will be a store, and we do have ability to ship out some of these products we're talking about. So thank you, my dear.
Absolutely.
A little chat on water. Love it.
A little water chat.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And
yeah, we totally forgot. What we should have done. So we purchased a yacht. It's called the Pond Yacht.
Yeah.
It's a little, probably, I think from the 1960s, a little 14-foot aluminum boat that came with a little anchor holder on the end of it. I call it the Pond Yacht. We should have filmed this from the Pond Yacht.
Oh, okay. Carter's like, how is that going to work next?
Carter could be in the canoe. We'd be in the Pond Yacht. It'd be amazing.
That's really funny. He's like all in on that. He would like to do that.
Anyway,
that's really funny.
Thought I had to
what does that have to do with the water?
Well, it floats on the water.
Oh,
we hope it floats. We haven't actually launched it yet, so we're assuming it floats. But
thanks to Nextdoor, we found that on Nextdoor. Now our new best friends.
Yes, we're going to actually have the sellers out to the house.
Yeah, they're awesome people too. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for letting us ramble on to all of you out there. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Fly the Coop.